Hello, I'm the Angry Spork. Last year, mere months after the passing of fellow Spider-Man creator Steve Ditko, we experienced the passing of Stan Lee. Well,
Me. Talk about me. Give me attention. Me.
burn that later. While he was by no means a perfect man, he always seemed to have a genuine love for the medium of comics as well as the fans. And perhaps it was this affection that influenced him to work with DC Comics to reimagine some of their most prominent heroes in the classic Marvel way across 13 one-shots. Today, I'm taking issue with Just Imagine Stan Lee creating DC. So let's see if his rendition of Batman makes us want to turn the page or turn our heads.
Alongside Joe Kubert and Steven Slavkovic, the cover features the title character leaping off the H of the Hollywood sign, with the city in the background, looked over by a larger shot of his head. They're definitely going for a more authentic Bat look with this mask. The first page is a letter from Stan, noting this is just a fun exercise honoring these legendary characters and getting to work with some top-notch artists.
These comics came out in 2001, just 10 years before DC would try reimagining their characters. But whereas Stan didn't delude himself into thinking his changes were improvements, Dan Didio isn't very smart.
We begin in a cemetery, so of course it's dark and rainy. Our main character, Wayne Williams, stands beside his mom at the grave of his recently shot down father, and having done his duty as a cop doesn't make the pain any easier. As they leave, I hope they don't trip over Joe Kubert's signature, Wayne remarks how bad their neighborhood has gotten, succumbing to a relegation to pessimism that his mom discourages. But then she also doesn't like the look of a group of nearby young men, so... little hypocrisy? They see someone getting beaten up by gang leader and enthusiast of ironic spelling, Hans Horgan, and Ma Williams orders them to stop. Wayne pulls her away, suggesting maybe the guy is deserving of a beating, later saying it was mostly just to get her out of danger. The goons apparently recognize Wayne as the son of a dead officer.
Which I'm sure was brought up for absolutely no reason and will have absolutely no bearing on the rest of the story going forward.
The next day, Wayne goes to his job at a mini-mart, one he'd planned to quit so as to never deal with his jerk of a boss again, but with the recent tragedy, that wouldn't be the best move. Not sure how bad this guy is, just telling him to stack cans, but I've worked the grocery retail before, so I'm willing to give the kid the benefit of the doubt. No sooner does Hans happen by with a foxy chick on his arm, yeah, kind of dated terminology, I'll admit, then a car's engine is heard gunning. It's a rival gang looking to take Horgan out, and while he dives behind the protection of a nearby car, Wayne notices the girl is too scared to move, and dives to protect her. After the gunmen drive off, feeling they've made their point, Horgan is strangely offended that someone acted like a hero and saved his girlfriend's life, even bringing up the deceased Officer Williams as a threat.
You know, there's being a villain, and then there's being so villainous you actively hate any act of heroism, even if it saves your girlfriend. In most situations, you'd figure a bad guy of that stature would at least be thankful. Maybe a little standoffish too, because he doesn't want to deal with the police or anything. Or maybe he'd try to lure the kid into his lucrative world of crime. Those scenarios could at least be seen as beneficial to him in some degree. But it does him no good to let his girlfriend just get killed, much less punish a dude for it. Well, he is evil, so maybe he'd be okay with it because it does no good.
Wayne warns him not to speak ill of his dad, so Hans smacks him and starts crushing his fingers. At the behest of his gal pal, he lets Wayne have a shot, letting go of one hand, but catches his punch anyway, and continues his assault. I don't know what hands no feet means, or why he'd get a customized jacket with it splayed on the back. Bad taste, I imagine. But this is comics, so maybe he thought it counted as subtle. Anyway, the woman threatens to break up with Hans if he doesn't stop, so he leaves, but with added warnings that they'll meet again. The next day, a group of masked men enter the store, one of whom sounds awfully familiar to young Wayne.
Is it Kevin Michael Richardson? John DiMaggio, Tom Kenny. They're all pretty prolific voice actors.
The armed intruders start praising Wayne like they're all buddy-buddy, which his boss is quick to believe because he's a moron. They shoot him and knock Wayne out, leaving one of their guns in his hand. His boss was only hit in the shoulder, so he's alive enough to testify in open court that his ungrateful employee was one of the thieves.
They must have been fighting over the money after I got shot. That's how he got knocked out.
Normally, a competent defense attorney would object on the grounds of speculation, but since that wouldn't be a speedy enough trial, and we gotta move the story along, I suppose, Wayne is found guilty and sent to prison, where he swears to get back at Hands for the frame-up. As the saying goes, justice is blind. Sometimes too blind.
And other times, if just for dramatic effect, Justice's eyes are surgically removed so she doesn't get that temptation to peek under the blindfold.
In the ensuing weeks, Wayne works at a sewing machine, so he can be the target of emasculating insults by other inmates who apparently don't want anything to do with him because of how well he sews. Because that's how bullying works in a federal prison, I'm sure. To keep his sanity and avoid thinking about Hands, Wayne starts observing bats flying by the prison at night, even leaving out food that regularly attracts one over the course of several months. It's company enough for Williams, who finds a certain kinship in the ugly creature that everyone hates. Hands, meanwhile, plans to expand his operations and conquer other gangs in the city, and tells his girlfriend Neato to shut up about the poor boy he got arrested.
He's on her mind after all this time? Who knew saving someone from a bullet-ridden death would make such an impact?
One day in the exercise yard, an inmate named Corgo decides to entertain himself by lifting a scrawny old man. When Wayne suggests he knock it off, the oddly named crook cracks him in the face and throws him head first into a wall. Okay, maybe it was the ground, but still, ouch! Wayne realizes he has a habit of speaking without thinking, but the old man tells him good impulses belie a good spirit, and suggests the young man make use of the barbells and prison library so his incarceration isn't a complete waste. Later, when it's revealed they are conveniently neighbors, we discover the old man is named Fredrick Grant, a scientist that tried stopping the polluting done by a factory through damaging their machines. But of course he got caught. He also makes a not-so-subtle suggestion that Wayne study up on his pet.
Bats have some powers that surpass those of humans.
What, like laser eyes? Pets have laser eyes, right? Anyway, Williams decides to start bulking up, and is fortunate enough to get tutelage from other bulky prisoners who respect how he stood up to Corgo.
Who knew these prisons had such friendly, well-intentioned mentors? I should probably go to prison. I just have to find out what crime to commit first. Oh, I'll just play it by ear. Or, in this case, machete.
Over the course of months, which the narration captions kind of break the fourth wall to say is for the sake of brevity, Wayne trains like no other to become stronger. He also bonds with Fred, an inventor, doctor of physics with multiple patents, until he's eventually released. Though bad news arrives when Wayne finds out his mom has passed away, and he re-swears vengeance on Hans Horgan for getting him locked up. We briefly cut to the Church of Eternal Empowerment, whose Dominic Dark declares they must increase their number and power with the hate-filled and vengeful. And at that instant, an entranced prison guard unlocks all the cell doors. Must be a coincidence. Naturally, that means it's escape time, so the inmates plan to grab the warden as insurance, with Corgo leading the charge. When threatening the warden doesn't work, the bald goon, who's already got a life sentence, decides, just kill him. Wayne, who had the wacky notion to try and reasoning with everyone before, he decides to simply lay the smack down on Corgo and anyone else until the guards arrive.
Why'd you stop our escape?
You'll never know.
Oh, wait, I see that memory pasted onto your forehead. Rain, gravestones, let me guess, dead dad, right?
A week later, we go to Horgan's penthouse, where he's growing impatient because Neato refuses to marry him. Not sure why this guy would care about marriage vows when he got angry that someone saved her life, but whatever. Then he reads how Wayne got himself a pardon for saving the warden, and decides he should finish him off for good.
Why? He can't prove that you framed him and you just said he was nothing to you. It doesn't make sense to go after him when he was released on unrelated circumstances. Oh, yeah, and you framed him because he saved your girlfriend. Maybe it's like real-life gangster Al Capone, and Hans's mind is going due to syphilis. No wonder Neato doesn't want to marry him. And depending on the extent of their relationship, maybe she should get herself checked.
The newly freed Wayne finds lodging in a cheap hotel, managed by yet another stout jerk like his old boss. Our hero-to-be concludes that Hans must have read about his pardon and will be gunning for him. Geez, the Batman we know is so prepared, it even extends to distant offshoots and alternate realities so they know what to expect. That's our Batman. Having brought his pet bat along with him, not sure how he managed that, Wayne figures the harder he is to track, the more tightly wound his nemesis will become. So he shaves his head and beard off, but leaves the stash, giving him kind of a Ving Rhames look. Honestly, he does look like a completely different person. He watches a little TV, specifically wrestling, and while he thinks the costumes are lousy, he admits it's entertaining, and apparently the announcer mentions they make a lot of money, which sounds like an odd thing for them to mention during a match.
Oh, would you look at that? Sledgehammer Ramirez just clotheslined the amazing Gustav, and now has him in a full Nelson. No wonder these guys each pulled down $10 million last year.
Since money is exactly what he needs to level the playing field against the crime lord, Wayne goes to the fabric store! After a few days of work, and now grateful of his time sewing things up in prison, he walks into a local wrestling gym as Batman. Nobody's particularly impressed with his getup until he manages to knock down an opponent called Steamroller, and he's signed up without a care at all to his identity.
Yes, because becoming a pro wrestler is as easy as getting really bulky and knowing how to sew. It's not like you need to take care in each and every match so that you and your opponent can go home to your families at the end of the day or anything. And yet somehow it's still better character development than I've seen from some modern-day writers in comics.
A montage of panels has the interconnected inner monologue of Wayne telling himself how his costume scares his opponents, giving him an edge to win, and thus get a bigger payday without ever losing his mask. So he's having the same train of thought over weeks. I guess that head injury from Corgo did more harm than we realize. And that in this universe, American wrestling has the same rules about masks as Mexican wrestling. And look at this guy with the arrow tattoo on his head. Looks like a midlife crisis hit Aang something fierce. Batman goes on talk shows, snags endorsements, has cereal and chocolates named after him, and can eventually afford a mansion sitting atop the edge of a cliff, which just looks so very safe. All without ever having to reveal his identity to the public, something I'm sure the IRS is super okay with. On a splash page, he's perched on a balcony ready to go after Hans, despite the obstacles, but realizes he has only one shot. Then goes inside to watch his many TVs.
So, he sat on the edge of his house in full costume, saying how it was time to finally go after the guy that framed him, only to go inside and take his mask off. Is he having first-time vigilante jitters or something?
As some news report exposits that Horgan is untouchable by the law, Wayne wonders what to do with his life when he manages to defeat the mob boss. And for some reason, the news is also reporting that recently released Dr. Grant is having a hard time. Man, Newsday got real slow real fast. So Wayne decides to visit his old friend. By crashing through his skylight, he reveals his identity to Fredrick, saying the doctor possesses wisdom and knowledge that he needs and is willing to pay for. Taking him back to his mansion, he explains the loss of his parents and desire for vengeance, and, stroke of luck, even outfitted a lab for the doc to replicate the powers of a bat for Williams to use. Night vision, radar sense, flight, and bulletproof Kevlar because he doesn't want to be too much like a bat.
Incidentally, that's also why he doesn't subsist solely on a diet of moths and mosquitoes.
In the interest of his low profile, they'll play up that Dr. Grant owns the fancy house and Wayne is his bodyguard. Meanwhile, Horgan's patience is still wearing thin, demanding that Neato agree to marry him or wear a lead kimono. I'm not sure if that's racist, but it certainly sounds weird. Does that mean you'll shoot her or make her wear something heavy while tossing her in the... Never mind. Batman is in his chopper, leaping out to test his wings, and since he doesn't go splat, they're a rousing success. He does make some noise hitting the roof and alerts a couple guards, but they're easily incapacitated. Approaching the gang boss himself, his underlings are too intimidated to attack, so Hans tries dealing with the intruder personally. He doesn't do so well, so his men open fire, to no avail. But of course he tells them to stop shooting because he wants to kill him with his bare hands. Bats gets surprised, taking a couple of punches, but saved by the protection in his cowl as he stumbles backward onto the balcony. Hans charges, but Batman takes advantage of the momentum, using his legs to flip the gangster over the edge. And, well, he don't have wings, so you can guess how this ends.
Time was OG Batman wouldn't outright throw you into a vat of acid, punch you with the intent to incapacitate, but not bother to save you if you clumsily stumbled back into said acid. Yeah, he was cool with that. It was standard for pulp heroes of that era, and this feels like possibly something of a callback to that. Maybe it's intentional, maybe it's not. That's another argument altogether.
Neato, however, doesn't feel that way. She wanted to be free of the guy, yeah, but not if it meant murder. She doesn't feel Batman has the right to kill just because he's disguised. She's curious how he knows her name when he utters it, and so am I, quite frankly. We didn't even find out until after Wayne was locked up, and he hasn't had any interaction with her since saving her life. In any event, since she has no place to go, Wayne will have Fred hire her as a secretary, because he wants her in his life, for some reason. At the Church of Eternal Empowerment, the thrall inside are warned about Batman, who has unwittingly entered the game, but he is no match for the ambiguous power of Dominic Dark. And it just so happens that bats are flying outside above the church, with Batman among them.
My bat ears are burning. Wait, no, the sonar equipment's overheating. Ah!
We close on a short story, On the Street, wherein a newspaper mentions Batman Strikes, which coincidentally was the name of a comic series based on The Batman animated series. This particular copy has something of a journey. It keeps passing from one curious individual to another, most of them very unaware it started out in a trash can, like this kid using it as a mask. Though I'll give you points for the Boo being upside down like he is. After a preview for the next installment, we get an alternate cover featuring Batman in a jail cell being spooky to a pair of cops, or guards. And I'll say this much, it does a better job of conveying the themes and events in the story in a very subtle way. Nicely done.
Overall, I'd say this is a respectable Elseworlds type view that delivers exactly what it promises. Stan's wit and creativity with some of his more, to be polite, dated elements of his writing.
There are goofy names like Corgo and Horgum, and how some people talk is very different from more contemporary comics, even in the early 2000s. Wayne wanting Neato around didn't really have any substance to it. It felt more like a last-minute romantic subplot for the sake of having one. The short story is alright, kind of symbolically showing how news of Batman is spreading, I guess. It feels a little fillery, but still fun nevertheless. There's definitely a charm to see how Wayne Williams' story developed. It's grounded and feels very real-world, with a man struck by tragedy getting a run of bad luck because of generally bad people. It's never explicitly stated that his race was a factor in any of his troubles, but one could call it a possibility. While making Batman a wrestler may seem a tad derivative of Spider-Man, Stan also dealt with some interesting subversion, with Wayne's daytime alter ego being a bodyguard, while his cohort acts as a front, a wealthy scientist living in a swanky mansion, though it's not really explored.
It's kind of like if Bruce Wayne decided to pretend to be Alfred's butler and Pennyworth went to upscale parties and board meetings. Which, now that I think of it, might be an even better cover than what we have now. Anyway, next week, Stan helms a new version of the Amazon Warrior Princess, who may or may not still be an Amazon Warrior Princess. I'm the Angry Spork, and man, have I got issues.